I drove 6 hours to walk my only daughter down the aisle. When I reached the gate, there was no welcome, only a security guard holding a photo of my face with a red line slashed through it. 4 words underneath ended everything. Do not let in. I didn't argue, I didn't beg. I turned my truck around and made one phone call. 4 hours later, the lights went out, the music died, and my daughter learned that the day she'd built on lies could collapse in 90 seconds. My name is William Carter, 72 years old, hands like sandpaper, driving a 1998 Ford truck that rattles past 40 miles an hour. To the world, I'm just an old contractor. To my daughter Sarah, I was an embarrassment, a stain on the perfect life she was building with her fiancé, Jason. That Saturday morning was built for a wedding. Blue sky, warm air, my 20-year-old tuxedo hanging in the truck bed. I'd polished my work boots instead of wearing the pinching dress shoes. In my pocket was a cashier's check for $50,000. My gift to Sarah, or so I believed. Golden Oaks Resort was the most expensive venue in the state. 50 grand just to open the doors. Sarah told me Jason was a tech visionary from old money. She lied. I pulled up to the security checkpoint in my rattling truck, a dinosaur among the Teslas. I felt only pride. My little girl was getting married. The guard didn't check a list. He held up a clipboard with my photograph, taken from a distance. Me in overalls holding a wrench. A thick red line drawn across my face. Banned. Do not admit. Call police if cited. There's a mistake, I said. I'm the father of the bride. No mistake, old man, he said, leaning in with coffee breath. Strict orders from Miss Sarah and Mr. Jason. No construction workers. No hillbillies. No one driving a heap of junk like this. You're ruining the aesthetic. The aesthetic. My existence was a blemish on my daughter's visual perfection. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Dad, please don't make a scene. Jason's parents are elite, sophisticated people. If they see your truck, your rough hands, your cheap suit, it'll destroy everything. You don't fit in this world. You never have. Just go. I'll send photos later. No apology. No love. Just, you'll destroy everything. I didn't argue with the guard. I didn't tell him I'd poured the foundation his booth stood on 20 years earlier, or that I knew the resort's owner by name. I just nodded, reversed the truck, and drove home in silence. I remembered the week before, when Sarah brought Jason to my cabin, the home I built plank by plank after my wife Catherine died. Jason stepped out of a rented Porsche, looked at my house, and said, "So this is the shack." Sarah laughed nervously. "I keep telling him to sell it. Even if the house is garbage, we could use the money. Dad would finally be useful." Useful. That's all I ever was to them. Driving home now, I pulled the $50,000 check from my pocket and tore it into pieces, letting them scatter out the window like confetti. The sadness had evaporated. What remained was cold, hard clarity, the kind a builder feels when he finds a foundation is rotten and knows it must come down, not be patched. I called Henderson, my lawyer, and the keeper of my real life. See, Sarah and Jason had made a fatal miscalculation. They judged me by my truck and my overalls and assumed poor meant simple. They didn't know I'd sold my construction company for $8 million a decade ago. They didn't know I owned 3 apartment complexes, or that I was the silent majority shareholder of the hospitality group that owned Golden Oaks itself. Pull the file on the Carter wedding, I told Henderson. Activate Clause 14C. He went quiet. The immediate revocation clause. Bill, are you sure? I was refused entry. I was banned. There's a poster of my face at the gate. They did. What? His fury matched mine now. The wedding's in progress. Guests are seated. I know. Shut it down. And get me the security feed. If I can't be there, I'll watch it happen. I drove home, poured cheap whiskey, and opened my iPad to the resort's camera feed. Crystal chandeliers, gold-rimmed plates, my daughter radiant in a Vera Wang gown, laughing beside Jason, who was working the room like a salesman pitching an empire built on nothing. Henderson executed the sequence. Financial severance first, the account frozen, the credit line dead. Then the infrastructure, main stage power, audio-visual circuits, atmospheric lighting, all isolated. The sound system's digital license revoked remotely, muting every microphone. Catering halted. The honeymoon suite's keycards deactivated. The reservation erased. "Once I give the go-ahead," Henderson said, "there's no unringing this bell." "They wanted me erased," I said. "I'm giving them exactly what they asked for." On the screen, the chandelier flickered once, twice, and died. Silence swallowed the ballroom. Then the screaming started, not fear, but entitlement being denied. Emergency lights kicked on, harsh and industrial, turning white orchids into looming shadows. The general manager, Sterling, walked onto the dance floor with a megaphone. "This event has been terminated." The funding was withdrawn by the account holder, William Carter. Sarah's face went white. "My father doesn't have money. He lives in a shack." "The Carter Trust owns a significant portion of this resort," Sterling said. "You have 14 minutes to vacate." Chaos erupted. Guests scrambled for valets. Waiters stripped tablecloths mid-conversation. Sarah grabbed Jason. "Tell them you paid for this." Jason mumbled something about a bank mix-up, his funds tied up overseas. Sterling laughed. "You haven't paid a dime. Your card was just declined for a $10 bar tab." Then the truth I'd uncovered days earlier caught up with the room. I'd hired a private investigator a month back, when Sarah's requests for cash had turned frantic. The dossier sitting on my desk told the real story. Jason wasn't a CEO. Nebulous Systems was a website registered for $12. Its team, stock photos. His real resume was unemployment, a fired car rental clerk, a fired kiosk salesman. His finances weren't wealth, they were debt. $80,000 in credit judgments, and beneath that, $540,000 in gambling debt to unlicensed lenders. He hadn't married my daughter. He'd recruited a mark. And the elite parents Sarah had been so proud of? Gary and Linda, a retired commercial actor and a hostess for hire, booked through a gig app for $200 an hour. On screen, Sarah turned to them for comfort. Linda lit a cigarette instead. "Don't call me Mom, honey." "Contract ended at 8. I'm off the clock." Gary demanded payment. "We're professionals. $2,000, cash or Venmo." When Sarah had no money, they took her engagement ring as collateral and walked out. The guests, denied their dinner and their fantasy, turned their phones on her instead of helping. They filmed. They laughed. Her college roommate live-streamed the humiliation as gold. Sarah sat alone on the stage, abandoned by the audience she'd traded me for. Then Jason came back, not for her, but for the gift envelopes, already cleared away by staff. When Sarah reached for him, he shoved her, screaming that her father had ruined him. She crashed into a flower display and hit the floor. He bolted for the exit, straight into 3 men in leather jackets. Vinny, the loan shark from the dossier, had come to collect. Jason tried to offer Sarah as collateral. Her jewelry turned out to be fake, just like everything else about him. The men dragged him out the back door, while Sarah lay in broken glass and dying flowers, whispering, "Daddy, I'm hurt." I heard it through the feed. Every instinct told me to drive there. I didn't move. She called me. I let it ring, then answered flat and calm. She begged me to come get her. I told her I couldn't. She'd banned me herself. When she called Jason a millionaire, I told her the truth. Gambling debt, fake company, actors for parents. She didn't believe it until I mentioned Vinny's name, and her voice cracked. "Start walking, Sarah," I said, and hung up. She walked 5 miles home in the dark, barefoot by the 2nd mile, her wedding dress soaked and dragging like an anchor. She fell, bled, cried into an empty road. When she finally reached my porch, she pounded on the door. I opened it only the width of the security chain. "Let me in," she begged, bloody fingers clawing through the gap. "You can't come in, Sarah. You put up the sign. This threshold is the line you drew." I told her everything. The trust, the shell accounts, the rent and insurance I'd quietly paid for years, the resort and the apartments I owned, the wealth she'd never bothered to ask about because she was too busy asking for checks. She raged. She pleaded. She called Jason a genius one final time before the words died in her throat. I slid a single key through the door crack to a studio apartment in the tenement building I owned downtown. The same building where I'd raised her for her first 2 years, back when her mother and I had nothing but each other. "Pick up the key," I said, "and start walking. The lesson you missed 10 years ago starts tonight." Then I closed the door. I followed her there in my truck, staying 20 minutes ahead by the back roads. I watched her climb 4 flights past broken elevators and graffiti into apartment 4B. Bare bulb, twin mattress, hot plate, a job application for the diner downstairs, already waiting on the table. I gave her 1 year of paid rent, a prepaid flip phone with no social media, and an ultimatum: survive on her own, or walk away from my life forever. If she lasted the year, we'd talk about something real, not a handout, but a ground floor job in my company. She stayed. I watched from a distance over the months that followed, never speaking, never helping, just watching. I saw her flinch under a rude customer's snapped fingers, and months later, absorb the same insult without flinching at all. I saw her count tip money in nickels and dimes, doing rent math in her head. I saw her put back a package of ground beef she couldn't afford, and once, at a discount grocery register, quietly tell a cashier to remove an apple because she was 5 cents short. That was the day I knew something in her had actually changed. Exactly 1 year after the wedding, I walked into that diner and sat by the window. Sarah came out from behind the counter, thinner, tired, steady-eyed, and poured my coffee without a word of shock. Black, no sugar, the way I like it. "Hello, Dad," she said. "Hello, Sarah. I came to talk business." I slid a folder across the table. Inside was an entry-level contract at Golden Oaks, the resort where it had all fallen apart. Junior operations associate, $45,000 a year, reporting to housekeeping. I told her I'd fired the old general manager for enjoying her humiliation too much. She asked why now. "Because you stayed," I said. "Because you paid for pasta with pennies and never once called to beg. You built a foundation. Now I'm handing you the bricks." She didn't take the offer without a condition of her own, a payment plan to pay back every cent I'd spent on the wedding, the rent, the year in that studio. I agreed. Her hand, when she shook mine, was rough now, calloused. It felt like my hand. We build our lives on what we're willing to earn, not what we're given. Sarah chased a golden illusion and nearly lost the one thing that was real, her family, and her own worth. I didn't save her by writing another check. I saved her by finally, for the first time in her life, refusing to.